I've got a question about Jesus in the grave and where he was for the 3 days when he was in the grave. And this is in connection with 1 Peter 3 verse 19, which I would like to read to you. It says, I'm going to read from verse 17. For Christ also has once suffered for sins, the just for the unjust, that he might bring us to God. So in other words, what he says is Christ wants to bring us to God, being put to death in the flesh, but quickened by the Spirit. So he says, in the flesh he died, but the Spirit made him alive. By which he also went and preached unto the spirits in prison. So he says here, this Spirit that made Christ alive. Let me just read verse 18 again and get the true context here. It says, for Christ also has once suffered for sins, the just for the unjust, that he might bring us to God, being put to death in the flesh, but quickened in the Spirit, by which also he went and preached unto the spirits in prison, which sometimes were disobedient, when once the long suffering of God waited in the days of Noah, while the ark was preparing, wherein few, that is 8 souls, were saved by water. The like figure unto even baptism does now save us, not the putting away of the filth of the flesh, but an answer to God of a good conscience. Now, what it's saying here, it's a very difficult passage to explain. There are obviously different theologians got different views about this, different scholars that it's out, it's got different views, but this is my view. I believe that Jesus didn't go into hell to preach to the Bible does say that Jesus went to hell, but it doesn't say that he went into hell to preach. I don't believe that. And we need to define hell and what hell actually is, but which we're not going to do now. What I see is that the Spirit that quickened Jesus from the grave is the Spirit by which he went. Jesus went by that Spirit and preached to the people that were disobedient in the times of Noah. Now, if we say that Jesus went to hell to preach to the people in the time of the flood, now what about the people that died after the flood, that was born after the flood? What about the people David's time, Noah's time? What about the people that died under the oppression of the Egyptians? So what about all those people? So if we want to take that literally and say that he went and he preached to those people in hell, and we say he physically went there, or in the Spirit went to hell to preach there, then we need to say that he excluded a lot of folk, which we know he would not do. He would preach to all people, but he didn't go and preach to all people. This is an analogy. He's making a connection, and what he's saying that there's going to come a day of judgment. There's going to be an end time day wherein all the unrighteous will die. And he wants people to be saved from their death. And he gave his Son, and the Spirit that was in his Son raised his Son from the dead. And this Spirit that raised Christ from the dead was the same Spirit wherein God operated in the times of Noah, when he wanted to save those people from death. And through Noah, he preached to them 120 years, and then the flood came and they died. And it was to people whose hearts was wicked above all things, wherein there was no place even for the message of God. Yet God never gave up and preached to them with this spirit of trying to save them from death. So what Peter's trying to say here is the Spirit that raised Christ from the dead, which we believe in, will raise us from the dead. That's in the back of his mind. And now, and if you can read just from chapter 1 as well, you will see that he's got this hope of salvation, this hope that we have been raised up into, which is immortality. And now he comes and he says, this Spirit that quickened Christ will also now, is the one that's going to quicken us. And this is the Spirit that God is in, is the Spirit that he doesn't want us to die, but he wants us to have life. Because remember, it's the same Spirit that says that we shouldn't count the return of the Lord that takes long as just slackness and he's taking long. He wants people to be saved, and we can see the same attitude and the same spirit inside God in times of Noah, where he forewarned people about the death, and then he preached them for 120 years. For what purpose? To save them from death. but they didn't want to hear, they didn't want to listen, and then only 8 were saved eventually. So this is talking about the whole salvation plan. I don't think it's talking about going to hell, preaching to certain people. If he went there, this is my question, if he went there to preach there, why did he only preach to some? Why didn't he preach to all that died? That's the big question there. So I just believe it's an analogy talking about the same Spirit that raised Christ from the dead, whereby God or whereby Christ preached back in the day through Noah to people. So go and read up on this on Google, look at different people's view and opinions about this, and you will see what I'm talking about. Thank you so much. God bless.